Welcome to Canadian Justice. I'm Christine Van Gyn. In August of 2021, the situation in Afghanistan had descended into a humanitarian crisis. The Taliban had seized control of the capital, and thousands of Afghans were seeking to flee a regime known for its brutality. Canada pledged to accept 40,000 Afghan refugees, but the very fast withdrawal of Western forces from that country left many stranded, including many Afghan people who had close connections to Canada. One of those people with a close connection to Canada who did get out is Saeeq Shajjan, a Harvard-educated lawyer and founder of Shajjan Associates, a full-service law firm in Kabul that had acted for the government of Canada and supported Canadian diplomatic and humanitarian missions. Saeeq is now living in Toronto, and he's working with lawyers from Castlesbrock and from Borden Ladner Gervais to assist more people left in Afghanistan, his colleagues left in Afghanistan, to help them find refuge in Canada. Here today to talk about those efforts is Saeeq, and we'll then be joined by some of the lawyers who are assisting him. Saeeq, thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to start by talking about your story. What can you tell me about your experience leaving Afghanistan?
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Honestly, it's very difficult to talk about it because every time you're talking about it, it reminds me of those very, very difficult days that honestly nobody really knew what's going to happen in the next few minutes, right? So as we all know, August was a month that nobody really knew that what's going to happen to the country. In a matter of few days, provinces were falling one after another, and then within 11 days or so, Taliban took over the entire country, including Kabul, which meant that a lot of people would be in danger, as it proved for a lot of people that they were left behind, that they faced very difficult consequences. So I was no different just because of the background that I had, the kind of work that I was doing. So I found myself to be in danger too. So the only option was to get out of the country. And a little bit earlier, as I said, there were days that the provinces were falling. So there was some indication that, okay, things are going to be very, very difficult for people in Afghanistan. I contacted the Canadian officials, colleagues that we were working with in the past, and I told them that this is the situation. And they said that, well, you should apply for the special immigration measures as soon as you can. I did it. My colleagues also did it. So I'm talking about early August now. And then until 15th of August, when collapse happened and Taliban had taken over the city, we did not hear anything. I was lucky that I had a couple of very good friends that they really cared about me and my safety. They got in touch and they made arrangements that I make it out of Afghanistan. So I was able to get out of Afghanistan with my family on the 17th of August. And as we all know, the situation was very difficult, very chaotic. It was not a routine traveling to get out of a airport, right? You had to go through thousands and thousands of people to make it to the different security points and make it to the airport and then wait for hours. In case of certain people, they had to be at the airport like for several days, where there are like no food or very limited food. You do not have like access to washroom and things like that. There's no place for you to kind of like really rest. You would be in open air for hours, in certain cases, as I said, for days until you make it to a plane to get out of Afghanistan. So very difficult situation. Honestly, it's not really pleasant to talk about it every time.
I understand. Now, you do have a number of colleagues who remain there. We've got about a minute left in this segment. What can you tell me about their situation while they are still in Afghanistan? What type of risk are they faced with?
Well, they're in danger. There's a very dire situation that they're in right now, just because of their affiliation with the Canadian government, that they were representing the Embassy of Canada, right? So it's not an easy situation for any of them. They are constantly living in fear. They're hiding. They're moving from one place to another place. In a lot of cases, they had to spend nights at different places, spend time with their cousins, to relatives, for families, whoever they can find, to make sure that they're changing their addresses constantly. At times, they would not even have access to their limit to their internet to make sure that they're not really somehow tracked. Right, so it's a very difficult situation, and we are talking about months now. It's almost 10 months.
Saeeq, we've got to go to commercial break, but when we come back, I want to talk about what we can do to help these colleagues of yours. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing the Government of Canada's commitment to bring refugees here from Afghanistan and the story of Saeeq Shajjan, an Afghan lawyer who's trying to bring his colleagues to Canada. We're joined also now by Artie Mohajir, who's a partner at Castles Brock, who is helping with this attempt to bring these lawyers who are at great risk to Canada. Now, Saeeq, one thing I wanted to follow up on is that lawyers in particular are perceived by the Taliban to be a threat or an enemy to the regime. Can you explain why they might be perceived that way?
Well, it's very obvious. So anyone who has a little bit of knowledge and intellect, right, you're a danger for them. They do not want you because you can talk about rule of law, you can talk about human rights, you can certainly somehow mobilize people that, hey, this is not right, this is wrong, right? Things should have been done differently. So as soon as they see that, okay, lawyers, they know what Islam is, right? The way that Islam is represented, it's very unfortunate, right? This is not what the religion that we believe in, right? So we believe as Muslims, it's a religion of peace, it's a religion of love, respect for individuals, right? But the way that it is presented right now, it's entirely different. So that's where it's coming from. That the lawyers, they know the religion, they know the laws in the country, they know how a humane society can look like, right? So as soon as they see that, well, these guys are then difficult, they're going to be dangerous for our rule and dictatorship in the country. This is how I see it.
Now, Artie, there have been attempts to bring Saeeq's colleagues to Canada, and the Canadian government has committed to bringing 40,000 refugees to the country. But they're still not here, and the crisis has been ongoing since August of 2021. So, what is taking so long? Why is it? What's happening to the process for these colleagues of Saeeq?
It's a really good question, Christine, and it's one that we've been asking ourselves, and we've been asking the government since we took on this pro bono cause. We don't have a great answer, frankly, when we're talking about people's lives at stake. We do know that the government got over 1 million applications for resettlement by Afghans. Whether they should be surprised at that is another question. But I think they were inundated with applications. Maybe there were some resource allocation issues. There's obviously some logistical issues as well, given that there's no formal diplomatic relations between Canada and the Taliban government. There's issues with biometrics and document verification. But frankly, these issues have been ongoing, and they were there back in August of 2021. So the hope would have been that there's been enough time to sort it out.
Now, the government has made that commitment already to bring 40,000 people here from Afghanistan. How are they doing on that commitment? How many people have arrived so far?
So from the government's own website, there's approximately 15,000 Afghans that have been resettled. The 40,000 commitment, it's really the best way to look at it is it's 18,000 of that 40,000 is allocated to the SIM program, with the balance being to private and government sponsored refugees and humanitarian streams. And from that 18,000, I believe only around 5,000 or 5,000 to 8,000 under the SIM program have arrived.
So a lot of space still left to bring your colleagues, Saeeq. One of the things I wanted to touch on just really briefly, Saeeq, is what type of work were these colleagues of yours and you doing for the Canadian government and military while Canada was still in Afghanistan? Just about a minute.
Well, so we were very much the face of the embassy in Afghanistan, right? So, and a lot of issues we had to deal with different agencies of the government of Afghanistan, right? We had to deal with the local landlords. We had to deal with local vendors that were providing services to the embassy in Afghanistan. And it's a relationship of almost 9 years. We're talking about early 2013 to December of 2021. So anything that they needed legal in Afghanistan, it would be us. And on top of that, there would be from time to time road accidents that the embassy vehicles would unfortunately engage in with different vehicles on the streets, and we had to go and resolve those issues.
I imagine being the face of the embassy would put them in particular risk now of targeting by the Taliban. We've got to go to commercial break, but we will be right back. Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing the Government of Canada's commitment to bring refugees here from Afghanistan and the story of Saeeq Shajjan and an Afghan lawyer who's trying to bring his colleagues to Canada. Now, Artie, how does the Government of Canada decide which applicants from Afghanistan they will grant refugee status to? As you said, there's a lot of people who have applied. How do they make the determination?
So initially, when the program was first announced, the criteria was those Afghans that have a significant and enduring relationship with the Government of Canada. I mean, obviously, that's very broad and general. As time has gone on, we've heard from the ministry that there is a first in, first out vetting of applicants. But frankly, it's still a bit of a black box for us, and it's a bit of a black box for other members of government. People aren't entirely sure. There does seem to be some preference given to interpreters and individuals that perhaps have worked directly with the government, with the embassies there. But we're not entirely sure.
I mean, that should mean that Saeeq's colleagues would fall into that box, though, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think as Saeeq mentioned, they've been working on behalf of the embassy there for almost 7 years. They're very well known, both in public there and in local courts. So, you think that that's a relationship, the legal retainer that they've had would give them priority, particularly given the risk and the risk of reprisal by the Taliban for his colleagues that are still there.
Now, Saeeq, I want to ask about not just your colleagues, but about, there's a lot of people who have been displaced. Do you have a sense of how many people are displaced in the country right now? How many people are actively trying to leave? And if Canada isn't one of their options, where else could they go?
Well, it's a very difficult situation, right? People have displaced internally quite a lot, that there is no numbers of that, right? And I'm sure we won't have that in any near future. Beside that, we have the specific numbers that people were able to get out of Afghanistan during that air bridge that we had in Afghanistan, right, to different countries, including Canada. I think we had like around 3,000 coming to Canada during that air bridge, and likewise, thousands and thousands went to the States. But a huge number of people, thousands of them, they went to Pakistan, right? Now they're again in a very difficult situation. A lot of them, they went on visas, their visas expired, and they cannot return back because they find themselves in danger. Similarly, there are thousands of people in UAE and Qatar and Albania and Greece. They're waiting to find a final destination. So it really depends upon who you were working with, which country you had that working relationship with, and where you really expect yourself to go and get out of Afghanistan.
Now, for Saeeq, for the people who have arrived in Canada, for the people who have made it here from Afghanistan, are there community supports? Are there government supports? What exists to help them start their new life in Canada once they arrive?
Well, in that sense, I think the Canadian government and Canadian people, they've been very generous. They've been very welcoming, right? Honestly, the love that I saw from people of Canada, that was impressive. We are all thankful, and a lot of people would tell us that you're lucky that you made it to Canada. Elsewhere, it would have been difficult, and especially the situation that these people are getting out of Afghanistan. So we are not talking about a routine immigration that you're planning for months and months, and then you're getting out of the country. So a lot of these people, they got out of Afghanistan with just one backpack, right? At most, they had one change of clothes. It's not an easy situation. And when we came in, so initially we were in hotels for several weeks. In certain cases, people were in hotels for months and months, right? And then you receive some sort of support from the government, which obviously is not really good enough. So you have to get out and start working as soon as you can. But the good thing is that at least there is some sort of support available from the government. And there has been so many different volunteers from Canadian societies that they were trying to help by whatever means that they were able. They would visit hotels in different places, and they would try to engage with recently arrived, or we would call them new Canadians, right? To make sure that they find whatever they're in need of.
Well, I'm happy to hear that it's been a welcoming experience for so many people. Certainly, you and your colleagues did a lot to help Canada when you were in Afghanistan. So I'm happy that people are being kind and welcoming to you now that you're here. We've got to go to commercial break, but we're going to continue this after that. Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing the Government of Canada's commitment to bring refugees here from Afghanistan and the story of lawyer Saeeq Shajjan, an Afghan lawyer who's trying to bring some of his colleagues here. Now, Artie, you and your firm, Castles Brock, are helping Saeeq to bring this application for his colleagues. What exactly have you been doing, and how did you get connected?
Interesting story how we got connected. Saeeq, when he first arrived, had an interview with Matt Galloway on The Current. Our managing partner of Castles, Kristen Taylor, heard that interview on the radio and immediately reached for her phone and connected with Saeeq on Twitter. And there were some conversations that happened after that, and our firm then decided to take on this pro bono cause. As far as that, how that's been going, I've been really blown away at the support and the efforts by all my colleagues. We have 80 firm members that volunteered for this, and we've since October of 2021 initially, we started calling the IRCC. They had a hotline that was set up when the SIM program was initially announced. So, the efforts first started by reaching out to the government that way. We quickly realized that the frontline staff there didn't have really any information to give us on the status of the application. So then we started a pretty intense letter writing campaign to members of Parliament. And we reached out and connected and went back and forth with about 30 or 40 MPs in different ridings all across Canada. Through those MPs, we were able to get some more information as to how the IRCC is processing applications. But unfortunately, we weren't really seeing any advancement with respect to Saeeq's colleagues. And we then, started reaching out to the different ministers and the PMO, and we connected with other Bay Street law firms, and in particular BLG and Denton's. And with them, we wrote an open letter and got 21 other national law firms to sign on to this open letter, urging the government to honor its commitments, and we made some recommendations on how to facilitate that.
So Artie, I imagine people are watching this and they're wondering, our viewers, what they could do to help, because these are people who did a lot for Canada, and I think they would make great Canadians. So if someone's watching, what could they do to help this?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on its head. These are Afghans that had helped Canada in Afghanistan. So, we do think that we have an obligation to help them now. And, I think one big way to help would be to reach out to your MP and make sure that the government knows that Canadians care about this, that that they want the 40,000 Afghans to arrive. We just don't want this to take a back seat. There's a lot going on in the world right now. So I think that would be great. And to that end, Christine, thank you for spotlighting it as well.
Well, it's my pleasure to talk to you both. Saeeq, 30 seconds left. Is there a charity that you feel strongly about that you think could help new arrivals in Canada from Afghanistan?
Well, I would say the number of people that I'm in touch with, they're doing great. So with the support of government that they're receiving for, I believe, almost for a year, a lot of them, they've started working, which is great. And this is what we want them, right? To get out of that support and stand on their own feet as soon as that is possible. But other than that welcoming that they're receiving, I think that's great, which I really appreciate it. And one good example is Castle's support for me, right? This is how Canadians welcome people in Afghanistan, which we are all grateful to.
We've got to go. That's all the time we have, but thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
We've heard today about the challenges of getting refugees out of Afghanistan. Many Afghans, like Saeeq's colleagues, worked with Western countries at risk of their own life. At tremendous personal peril, they helped our Canadian forces. It's our turn to help them, and our government says they agree. So why are things moving so slowly? And what can we do to help? You be the judge. I'm Christine, and remember, a freer Canada starts with you.